Let's dive right into the deep end. This month, Congressman Adam Smith introduced the Empowering Individuals to Success Through Education and Workforce Training Act. The legislation would offer more support for people in workforce training programs and two-year education programs.
Some of that support includes child care, transportation, and housing assistance. And Congressman Smith joins us this morning from Washington, D.C. to continue the conversation. Nice to have you with us on the show, Congressman. Thanks for your time.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the chance.
Let's first talk about why this legislation, in your mind, was needed.
Well, workforce development is a crucial part of the economy. And look, we have the somewhat ironic situation where we have a lot of people who are looking for jobs or looking for well-paying jobs. And at the same time, we had a lot of jobs going unfilled. You know, Congress has passed massive increases in infrastructure funding, the CHIPS bill that's going to help with manufacturing plants for silicon chips, the Inflation Reduction Act focused on transitioning our energy economy. Those jobs need to be filled. Most of them don't require four-year degrees. They do require some sort of workforce development training, but a lot of the people seeking that training, even though that experience, that education is cheaper than a four-year degree, they still face challenges. They face challenges with transportation, with childcare, with healthcare, with other aspects of it to be able to afford to get the training they need to get the job. This bill is meant to close that gap, give them the economic support they need so that they can get the training to go fill these jobs, which that's the hope and goal of the legislation.
Congressman, can you talk more about the support for people in these programs? How will this legislation provide that, and does it have the support needed to pass the House and the Senate?
Well, first of all, we have a lot of good workforce development programs, a lot of apprenticeship programs. Unions are very involved. The electrical workers, the Liona Union, the laborers union, they set up these apprenticeship programs to give people the opportunity to come in and get the training, but they need that extra economic support to be able to afford it. This is a budget proposal, so even if the legislation itself doesn't pass, we are fighting to make sure that funds for programs like this are included in the appropriations process. But yeah, it's still, any piece of legislation introduced in Congress is an uphill fight. It's the nature of it. 435 House members, 100 senators. We all have to get on the same page. But the basic idea about increasing support for workforce development is something that has strong bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate.
Congressman, I want to ask you about money here. So we know that congressional leaders formally announced a deal to fund the U.S. government through the fiscal year. Both chambers still need to vote on that. Do you see this all coming together before Friday's deadline, and what do we expect on Friday?
I do. I mean, look, it's problematic because the fiscal year ends October 1st. So we have been operating on a continuing resolution, which is a stopgap funding mechanism that is not ideal since October 1st. And here we are almost 6 months past that date, and now we're finally finishing the last 6 appropriations bills. We passed the previous 6 a week ago. So it continues to be a problem. We need to fund the government as close to October 1st as possible. I mean, we can disagree on how to fund it, exactly what gets spent, but this delay undermines our ability to meet the needs in a lot of different areas. So hopefully we will do better next year. The year before, we passed it in early December, so hopefully we can get the appropriations bills done sooner in the future. But yes, this Friday, I think we will get it done.
Congressman Smith, now let's get to that pro-Palestinian protest during a town hall event in your district. Talk with us about what happened at that event and the statement you released on Monday. And also, where do you currently stand on a ceasefire agreement?
Well, first of all, I mean, calling it a protest really, I don't think does justice to what was done. It was an effort to shut down democracy. It was an effort to silence any voice on that or any other issue that disagreed with the people who were there. And I think that's just completely wrong. Look, the issues around Gaza are enormously important. And I've met with the groups that were present in that community repeatedly over the course of the last 5 months, since October 7th. This was just ridiculous. I mean, I tried to address the issues. They shouted me down. I couldn't get 4 or 5 words out of my mouth. They would ask questions, you know, again, completely out of order, but I tried to answer them and they wouldn't let me do it. Look, what is going on too often in politics on both the right and the left is an effort to silence and intimidate opposition as one method of forcing your worldview on everybody else. It's a huge problem in the Seattle area. certainly, there have been debates over defunding the police and abolishing the criminal justice system. And in those instances, you had people try to intimidate elected officials and try to intimidate other voters. There were people at that meeting on Sunday who wanted to have a conversation about a wide variety of issues. They were silenced by this group, not giving them that opportunity. So, look, we have a representative democracy. We need to have a method to having a conversation. These groups weren't interested in a conversation. They were interested in trying to intimidate me and then intimidate everybody else in that room into silence. And I think it's something we all need to stand up against.
Do you want to see a ceasefire?
I support, and I tried to get this out multiple times, but was, insulted and shouted down every time. I support a negotiated ceasefire and have for some time. A negotiated ceasefire that involves the release of the hostages as well. What these groups have supported since days after October 7th is a unilateral ceasefire that allows Hamas to basically get away with the murders they committed on October 7th. Look, there has to be a balanced approach here. There has to be the release of the hostages. There has to be some security commitments for Israel going forward. The Biden administration has been aggressively trying to negotiate that ceasefire for months. And look, part of the block to this is Hamas thinks that they are winning the PR war. They don't think they have to come to the table. They think they can continue to do what they're doing. We need to hold Hamas accountable for the war crimes that they are committing. Hiding behind civilians in the midst of a fight is a war crime. And that is what they are doing. It is placing the Palestinians at risk as well as the Israelis. So yes, a negotiated ceasefire, absolutely. A unilateral ceasefire that does nothing to bring the hostages back, no, I do not support that.
Congressman, knowing that you were coming on the show today, we asked viewers if they had any questions for you. And we got one from a user who wrote this: what's being done to secure the border, most likely talking about the southern border? And this person added this quote: Americans need our border secured so we don't have a terrorist problem like Israel has. What's your response to that, and what are we seeing at the border?
I think our border is a major challenge. We are being overrun by migration right now, and we do not have the security that we need. We negotiated a bipartisan border security bill in the Senate. Republicans and Democrats came together in the Senate with the White House and got an agreement that would strengthen border security. And then Donald Trump stood up and said he didn't want it because he wanted to have the issue for this November election. That sort of partisan politics is what's undermining our ability to get a bipartisan agreement. Look, we need immigration in this country, but we need immigration that is ordered and that is legal. And we need to expand that while also better securing our border. And that is the agreement that was negotiated, again, by a bipartisan group of senators. But then the Republicans voted it down because Donald Trump told them to. So, look, we need to pass that bill. We had the opportunity, and I hope the Senate will take it back up, and I hope that Republicans will agree with it.
Thank you so much, Congressman Smith, for joining us on ARC Seattle and for taking all of those questions. I know you have a lot on your plate. Thank you.